A week before my parents' anniversary, my mom handed me a folder: "You'll decorate, serve, clean, and smile. Don't embarrass us." My sister laughed. Free labor always shows up. I never thought a single manila folder could make me feel like a servant in my own family. But that's exactly what happened a week before my parents' 30th wedding anniversary. It was a Tuesday evening, and I had just come home from my part-time job. I was tired, sweaty, and honestly just looking forward to a shower and maybe 30 minutes of mindless scrolling before bed. Instead, my mom intercepted me at the door like she'd been waiting. She didn't even say hello. She just thrust a thick folder into my hands. "This is yours," she said briskly, like a boss assigning paperwork to her assistant. "Inside is the schedule, the guest list, the layout, and your duties. You'll decorate, serve, clean, and smile. Don't embarrass us." I blinked at her, caught between confusion and disbelief. What? Don't what me? "It's all in there," she said, already turning away like the matter was settled. Before I could protest, my older sister, Claire, strolled in from the kitchen with a smirk plastered on her face. She snatched the folder out of my hands, flipped it open, and started laughing. "Oh my God," she said, loud enough for the neighbors to hear. "Look at this. You're literally the event staff." "No, scratch that, you're the staff. Free labor always shows up." She tossed the folder back at me like it was contaminated, then collapsed into the couch, scrolling on her phone and cackling at her own joke. I stood there, folder in hand, my jaw tightening. Inside were page after page of tasks. Set up tables and chairs. Arrange centerpieces. Mom had taped a picture of her inspiration board from Pinterest. Iron all the tablecloths. Serve drinks and appetizers to guests. Clear plates between courses. Manage the dessert table. Wash dishes, bag trash, and restore the home to its original condition. At the bottom, in my mom's handwriting, was one last line. "Smile at all times. Do not embarrass us." It felt less like a family celebration and more like indentured servitude. For context, I'm the youngest of three. Claire is 28, engaged, and treated like royalty. My brother, Daniel, is 26, currently living out of state, and apparently exempt from all family obligations. Then there's me, 22, juggling school and a part-time job, still living at home because rent is insane. In our family dynamic, Claire is the golden child, Daniel is the busy but brilliant one, and I'm the one they call when they need something done. Furniture moved. I'm there. Last-minute errand. That's me. Tech support at 2 a.m. Guess who? But this folder was on another level. This wasn't helping out. This was an entire unpaid job. I tried to reason with Mom. Why can't we just hire servers? Or split the work? Her expression hardened. Do you think money grows on trees? We're already spending enough on catering. Besides, families are supposed to help each other. You'll manage. Claire snorted without looking up from her phone. Yeah, you'll manage. Think of it as character building. Something inside me snapped a little. Character building for who? You. You're not lifting a finger. Her smirk widened. Exactly. That's why it's funny. That night, I sat on my bed flipping through the folder. Every task was color-coded and timed down to the minute. It was like my mom had written a military operation, only instead of soldiers she had me. I should have said no. I should have drawn a boundary. But in that moment, I felt trapped. If I refused, Mom would accuse me of being selfish, ungrateful, and disrespectful. Claire would mock me endlessly. And Dad? He'd stay silent, like always, because keeping the peace mattered more than sticking up for me. So I told myself I'd do it. I'd get through the day. I'd smile and serve and clean, just like the folder demanded. But deep down, a seed of resentment had been planted. And it was only going to grow. The next morning, Mom knocked on my door before work. "Don't forget," she said, as if I could. "You'll need to take Thursday off so you can help me with prep." "I've already told your boss." I sat up in bed, stunned. "You what?" "I called him yesterday. He said it's fine." She left before I could respond, leaving me fuming under my blankets. She had no right to do that. No right to call my boss, rearrange my schedule, or volunteer me like some personal assistant. Claire, of course, found it hilarious. At breakfast she whispered, "Guess your mom's little butler now." I didn't laugh. As the week went on, the demands piled up. Mom sent me on endless errands, buying candles, hauling cases of wine, picking up dry-cleaned linens, even driving across town to fetch specialty napkin rings she'd found online. Every time I came back sweaty and exhausted, Claire would be on the couch, sipping iced coffee and scrolling through Instagram. "Thanks, free labor," she'd chirp. By Friday, my resentment was boiling over. This wasn't a celebration, it was a circus. And I was the clown doing all the grunt work while everyone else sat back and enjoyed the show. I started wondering if maybe, just maybe, I shouldn't go along with the plan. And that's when things got interesting. Because while my mom thought she had everything under control, she had no idea what was coming. And neither did I. The Saturday before the anniversary was when things really kicked off. I woke up at 7 a.m. to the sound of my mom banging around in the kitchen. When I stumbled downstairs, rubbing my eyes, she shoved a list into my hands before I'd even managed to pour myself coffee. "Tables and chairs need to be picked up from the rental place. Claire will supervise the centerpieces while you set them up." "Supervise?" I echoed, staring at the sheet. She doesn't even know what a centerpiece is. Mom gave me a look sharp enough to slice through steel. "Don't start. She has a good eye for these things. Just listen to her." Claire appeared, yawning dramatically in her silk pajamas, holding a latte she definitely hadn't made herself. "Don't mess this up," she told me, like she was already my boss. I swallowed my irritation and went to haul chairs into the back of our SUV while she sat cross-legged in the passenger seat, scrolling through her phone. "Make sure you don't scratch them," she said, without looking up. "Mom said they're rented." I gritted my teeth so hard I thought I'd break a molar. By noon, I was drenched in sweat, having hauled tables, chairs, and boxes of linens. Claire's biggest contribution was holding her phone up to show me Pinterest boards of aesthetic table layouts and then sighing loudly when I didn't arrange things fast enough. "You're hopeless," she declared after my third attempt at lining up the chairs perfectly. "Then do it yourself," I snapped, slamming another chair into place. She laughed, flipping her hair. "Why would I? That's what you're here for." Mom, who had been fussing with candles, glanced over. "Don't talk back to your sister. She's helping." Helping? I wanted to scream. Claire hadn't lifted a single finger all morning. But I bit my tongue. I'd learned years ago that in this house, protesting only made things worse. The rest of the weekend was a blur of chores. Grocery runs, ironing tablecloths until my shoulders ached, and polishing wine glasses until my fingerprints vanished. Every time I paused for even a second, Mom was there with another task. "Don't forget to sweep the porch. Pick up more ice. Rearrange those chairs, they're crooked." Claire followed me around like a shadow, offering helpful commentary. "That table looks uneven. Did you even measure?" Or, "Wow, you're really sweating. Maybe you should try not looking so gross in front of guests." I started fantasizing about disappearing before the party even started. Just packing a bag and vanishing for a week. But of course, I didn't. I couldn't. My guilt wouldn't let me. By Tuesday, the house was unrecognizable. Mom had transformed it into what she called an elegant venue, though to me it looked like a Pinterest board exploded in our living room. Flowers, candles, and fabric draped over every surface. I was running on fumes, averaging maybe 5 hours of sleep a night thanks to late-night prep and early morning errands. My boss had texted me asking if I was okay, since Mom had canceled 2 of my shifts without telling me. I typed out a long, angry response, then deleted it. What was I supposed to say? Sorry, my mom has enslaved me for her anniversary party. Claire, meanwhile, was posting Instagram stories about how we've been working so hard to get ready for the big day. Every shot was her posing with a glass of wine while I sweated in the background, hauling trays or wiping down tables. The comments poured in, "OMG, you're the best daughter ever," and "You must be doing so much to help your parents, Queen." I wanted to throw her phone into the nearest fire pit. Wednesday night was the rehearsal dinner. Not for guests, but for us, meaning me. Mom had me practice carrying trays of glasses, refilling water pitchers, and clearing plates without making a sound. She actually stood there with a stopwatch. "Too slow," she'd say. "Do it again." Claire clapped mockingly. "Encore, encore." When I finally snapped, "I'm not a waiter," Mom's face hardened. "You will be on Saturday. For your father and me. For our friends. You will not embarrass us." Her voice was cold, final, and filled with the kind of authority I hadn't heard since I was a little kid. I went to bed that night seething, fists clenched under the covers. My chest burned with resentment, but underneath that was something else, something dangerous. A thought. What if I didn't play along? What if I stopped being their free labor? The morning of the anniversary arrived with a knot in my stomach. I woke up before my alarm, staring at the ceiling, trying to summon the energy to face the day. Guests would start arriving at 5 p.m. Mom wanted me dressed, in all black, like a proper server. Claire had already laid out a black dress for herself. She wasn't serving, but she wanted to look chic in case people asked who the decorator was. When I came downstairs, Dad was actually in the kitchen, sipping coffee. He gave me a small smile. Big day today. I stared at him, wondering if he even knew what I'd been put through all week. Did he realize his wife had turned me into staff? Did he care? "Yeah," I muttered. "Huge day." He opened his mouth to say something, then closed it again, retreating behind his mug. Classic Dad. Always neutral. Always silent. I wanted to scream at him to take my side, to do something. But he just sat there, sipping, while my mom stormed in barking orders like a general. Tables need one last wipe down. Centerpieces need fluffing. "Claire, you're in charge of greeting guests. And you," she jabbed a finger at me, "get into uniform. You've got work to do." I looked down at the black button-up and slacks she'd laid out for me. Uniform. That's what she called it. Something inside me cracked. Because in that moment, staring at those clothes, I realized something crystal clear. This wasn't my parents' anniversary. Not for me. Not anymore. This was my breaking point. And I wasn't going to play the servant any longer. By the time guests started arriving, the house didn't even feel like ours anymore. It felt like a showroom, every corner staged, every candle lit, every piece of furniture shoved against the walls to make space for tables. Mom had transformed our living room into a banquet hall. She stood by the door in a glittering gown, Claire beside her in a sleek black dress, both of them beaming like they'd just won an award. And me? I was in black slacks and a button-up, tucked neatly like I was about to clock in for a shift at some restaurant. My mom actually handed me a folded towel and said, "Keep this over your arm. It looks professional." I felt like I was disappearing inside myself. Not a son. Not a guest. Not even family. Just staff. The first couple arrived at 5:10. Old family friends, the Harrisons. They swept in with gifts and hugs. "Claire!" Mrs. Harrison squealed, wrapping her up. "Oh, you've grown into such a stunning young woman. You must be helping your parents so much with all this." Claire smiled sweetly. "Oh, you know me. I've been working non-stop to make tonight perfect." I almost choked. She hadn't done a damn thing except sip wine and take selfies. Meanwhile, I was already carrying trays of champagne flutes to the dining room, weaving between guests who barely looked at me. It only got worse. Every time someone complimented the setup, Claire took credit. "Yes, I coordinated the flowers." "Oh, the tablecloths." "I picked the color scheme." "The food presentation." "I guided the caterer." And people ate it up. "Your daughter is so talented," they gushed at my parents. "You must be so proud." Mom beamed like she'd birthed a prodigy. Dad nodded, sipping his drink. Nobody noticed me gliding silently through the room, collecting empty glasses and replacing them with full ones. Nobody noticed my sweaty hands, my aching feet, my forced smile. I wasn't the child of the hosts. I was invisible. Around 7 p.m. Dinner was served. Not by me, thankfully. The caterers handled the main courses. But clearing plates? That was apparently my domain. "Don't clatter the dishes," Mom hissed as I carried stacks back to the kitchen. Guests noticed these things. Claire, meanwhile, sat at the head table, laughing and chatting like she was the guest of honor. Every so often she'd catch my eye, raise her wine glass, and mouth, "Free labor." My blood boiled. I wanted to snap the plates in half. I wanted to dump a tray of drinks over her perfect dress. I wanted to stand on the table and scream, "I did all this, not her." But instead, I smiled. I cleared. I kept moving. By dessert, my hands were shaking. Not from exhaustion, though I was dead on my feet, but from rage. Guests were crowding around the cake, snapping photos, cooing over the family effort. Someone asked Claire how she'd managed to pull it all together. She laughed, tossing her hair. "Oh, it was a lot of work, but you know, I love doing things like this. It's my gift." Gift. My throat tightened. Mom glanced over at me, snapping her fingers. "Smile," she mouthed. And that's when it hit me. I could keep playing their servant, keep swallowing my anger, keep letting them erase me. Or I could stop. The moment presented itself sooner than I expected. As I carried out another tray of champagne, a group of guests cornered Claire, showering her with praise. "You should be an event planner. You have such a gift for this." She preened, soaking it in. "Maybe I should," she said, laughing. "I mean, look at tonight. It's flawless." That word echoed in my skull, flawless. I glanced around the room. Candles flickered. Flowers gleamed. Glasses sparkled. To everyone else, it was flawless. But I knew the truth. The truth was standing in black slacks, holding a tray, sweating through his shirt, invisible to the people praising the fraud across the room. The truth was me. And I realized, I didn't have to stay invisible. I set the tray down. Slowly, deliberately. My heart pounded in my chest like a drum. For once, I wasn't going to smile. I wasn't going to keep quiet. I was going to speak. I stepped forward, clearing my throat. "Actually," I said, loud enough to cut through Claire's laughter, "there's something you all should know." Heads turned. Claire froze, mid-laugh, her eyes narrowing. Mom's face tightened instantly, panic flashing in her eyes. I looked around the room, at the guests, at the decorated tables, at the cake gleaming under the lights. Then I looked at my sister. "You didn't do this," I said. My voice shook, but I kept going. "You didn't decorate, you didn't plan, you didn't serve. You didn't lift a finger. I did. Every chair, every tablecloth, every flower arrangement, every dish cleared tonight, it was me. Not you. The silence was deafening. Claire's face flushed red. You're delusional, she spat, laughing nervously. Mom and I. Don't, I cut her off. Don't take credit for what you never touched. You sat on the couch all week while I ran errands, cleaned, hauled, served. You called me free labor. You laughed at me. And Mom, I turned toward her, you treated me like staff, not family. You even called my boss to cancel my shifts so I'd be here, working for you. Not celebrating. Working. Gasps rippled through the room. My mom's face was pale, her lips pressed tight. Dad finally lowered his glass, staring at me like I'd grown a second head. But I wasn't done. This isn't my parents' anniversary, I said, my voice cracking. This is my humiliation. And I'm done playing along. I dropped the towel from my arm onto the floor. The sound was small, but it felt louder than anything I'd ever done. Then I walked out. Behind me, I heard whispers, confusion, my mom's sharp voice trying to smooth things over, Claire's panicked denials. But I didn't stop. I went upstairs, grabbed my bag, and left the house. For the first time all week, maybe for the first time in years, I felt free. Of course, freedom didn't last long. Because when the party ended, the fallout began. And that fallout was worse than anything I'd expected. The morning after the anniversary, the house was silent. No laughter, no clinking glasses, no fake compliments, just the wreckage of a party and the weight of what I'd said. Mom barely looked at me. When she finally did, her words were sharp, you embarrassed us. Claire was worse. She stormed into my room, hissing that I had ruined her moment and made her look like a fool. For once, I didn't flinch. I looked her in the eye and said, it was never your moment. Then I walked past her. Dad caught me by the door as I grabbed my backpack. For a second, I thought he might scold me too. Instead, he just sighed and said quietly, you shouldn't have had to do all that. I'm sorry I didn't step in. It wasn't much. But it was the first time he'd admitted anything. I left that day, not forever, but long enough to clear my head. I stayed with a friend, picked up extra shifts, and let my phone buzz with unanswered calls from my mom. When I finally came home, I set down one boundary, clear and unshakable, I will never be your servant again. And whether they liked it or not, they heard me. For the first time in my life, I wasn't invisible anymore.